let's take a look at the situation. We're continuing from last time here. We are playing the road to Leningrad scenario here. Well, we may want to turn summary here. Obviously, the main objective is Leningrad, and we'll see how well we are going to do with that. We have pushed the infantry about as far as they can go this turn, and we've moved up a lot of our headquarters units. Keep everything well in command and supply as best we can, and we're getting ready to use the motorized, not just armored, but motorized forces. And I want to take the Pskov. Yes, that's about how a Western person might pronounce that name. Now we can see friendly losses. We've lost 32 tanks, 30 aircraft, 28 artillery pieces, and 2,151 men. That is what we have lost so far. We're going to push on here. Okay, like I say, we want to take this out. My general objective is to try to move up here as fast as I can, try to avoid the Narva sort of terrible conditions to battle in there, and clean this up at leisure. We don't know if we can also see about trying to cut these forces down here, but it is a wouldn't that be nice kind of objective. Okay, so with this game, we want to try to bring up units in the rear to attack first. Their position and mobility will give them greater depth movement, looks like. So let's move up the 3rd Motorized Division. Here, no. Oh. We will move. I don't think we can bust through here. That's a lot of armor. How is everyone doing today? I thought. So what? Hey, original Twitch. Not a great week. They're not doing that great. Been sick all week. I'm sorry to hear that, original Twitch. That is not good to hear. Not what I wanted to hear from everyone, but I know how those kind of weeks can go. Now, just a bit of information I found interesting. I was doing a little bit of reading on Hoepner here before the start of the stream. And history can be a funny and interesting thing. Hello, Plax Gangster. Love the detail of this game. Is that the SS and all? Yes, that is Totenkopf. That's what I want to talk about a little bit here before we make this attack. Totenkopf. Theodor Eicke is the commander of the unit. I don't know if at this point in the war, July 41, exactly all of his positions. Sometimes within the National Socialist regime, people continue to hold on to titles and positions, even though they were no longer effectively doing the job anymore. There's a lot of, shall we say, empire building within the Third Reich. But he had been, of course, the general, is it general inspector or inspector general or whatever of the concentration camp system? Death's Head, yes. Wasn't Hoepner executed? Yeah, I'm going to get to some of that, Plax Gangster. But I want to sort of tell the story as it goes. So Totenkopf, the Totenkopf Verband were the had multiple roles, but the sort of famous one, of course, is being running the concentration camps, and that's what they did. And people definitely died in them, but at the earlier stages pre-war, they were concentration camps as opposed to later functions moving into being death camps. But early on, they're just concentration camps. And like I say, people died there, but that wasn't like its function. But these are prison guards, shall we say, and ideological prison guards for sure. And that is who is recruited into the Totenkopf division. Totenkopfs were used, the Totenkopf Verbands that were around, were partially another element of their function was a sort of reserve manpower for what was becoming the Waffen-SS. By 41, they are the Waffen-SS, but before then, they're the SS, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, SSVT, and other elements. So there's definitely personnel moving around between these organizations. But Totenkopf division is, I'm not going to say exclusively, but primarily made up of prison camp guards. And it's used in the Battle of France, very famously. And I just was skimming this stuff, but I'd heard about it before. There's an incident in which about 100 plus British soldiers that have been captured are executed by members of the Totenkopf. Well, this does not please Hoepner. He had already issued orders, not specifically to, and Totenkopf is under his command at that time, I think, but he's definitely in the area of operations in which Hoepner is operating. And there's multiple reasons beyond just, hey, it's a bad thing to do, that he doesn't want prisoner executions going on. So he demands an investigation immediately. This is while the Battle of France is still happening, and calls for because he believes, the basic facts are correct. The dismissal from any sort of military service, Theodore Eicke. Well, there's some sort of investigation, but it's all forgotten and covered up. And so there is really strong bad blood between Totenkopf, or Eicke, who's running Totenkopf at the time, at this time, and Hoepner. And so, it's awful for it's awful plastic gangster. I'm not even, we all know it's bad morally just to out of hand execute prisoners of war, but there's a lot of other problems that come along with it as well in a military sense. It's one thing if you're, you can refuse to accept surrender. There is nowhere in any sort of Geneva Conventions when the enemy puts up their hands, you've got to accept them. No, you can just shoot them. You do not have to accept the surrender of enemy soldiers. They can go, you can be, firing at the building and they can come running out with their hands up and you can machine gun them perfectly legitimately because you don't have to accept surrender. But once you do accept surrender and take them into your custody, then is when all of the various legal and moral, because, moral is maybe the enemy, does suicide bombs, and, that has gone on not just in recent history, but in long history of things, So we can look at the Japanese doing all kinds of suicide type attacks, and the Americans getting too often at times they did accept surrender, but for a lot of the campaigns in the Pacific, they just didn't accept surrender of the Japanese soldiers. They didn't know who was surrendering on good faith or who was just faking to surrender to then, pull out a hand grenade and kill as many of the GIs as they can. So the Americans, not just the Marines, but the Americans in a lot of the island hopping campaigns did not accept surrender. But if you look at like the campaigns in the Philippines and other stages, you have mass surrenders. One of my teachers years ago was a U-boat, or not U-boat, a motor torpedo boat commander, and he was in charge of one operation in which he just showed up to a Japanese-held island with a handful of motor torpedo boats, all towing barges, and hundreds of Japanese. This is not after the war. This is when the war is still raging. Hundreds of Japanese just all docilely got on board of the soldiers got on board of the barges and were hauled away because they were starving, literally, because of the island hopping campaign and cutting off of supplies, and they had made some prior, radio contacts or whatever. So yes, in those kinds of situations, the Americans very much did accept Japanese surrenders. It wasn't a war of annihilation or anything like that. But once you got into the, hand-to-hand, bunker-to-bunker type fighting, it didn't matter. You saw Japanese, you killed them. Whatever they were apparently trying to do. So I'm not trying to knock either German soldiers or American soldiers or anybody for not accepting a surrender. But once you accept a surrender, once they're in your custody, whether in the Battle of France or later, like in the Malmedy incidences, and we know this also went on the Eastern Front, but we have better records of it on the Western Front, so we talk about it more. You need to appropriately handle the people. How do you convince yourself you are the goodies when you are doing all this stuff the baddies do? Is it a moral certainty that almost every war ever fought, proponents of both sides believe they were generally the goodies? Well, everyone's a hero of their own story. And, we're going to get to keep playing this here, but particularly in the battle in the East, this is also got, again, from rereading about Hoepner just before the start of the, because Hoepner also very much embraces the Commissar order, and which is you know, on one case when he's fighting the Western Allies, he's all worried about treating prisoners of war appropriately once they become prisoners. But on the Eastern Front, it's sort of like, oh, you capture commissars? Well, separate them out and shoot them immediately. Not shoot the standard Soviet soldier, but shoot the commissar immediately. So, with the Germans on the Eastern Front, it isn't so much of an there is elements of it, of an ideological war between competing economic models, capitalism, communism, fascism, whatever. I'm talking economics here. It is an ideological war of trying to think how to put this appropriately, of eugenics, of keeping not just gene pools, but they also did get into, they thought certain races were more likely to spread certain diseases. So it is seen, and again, in an ideological sense from the Germans, but it's as a moral imperative of cleansing the human race. And so they think they're doing the good thing by, yes, and I need to come up and allow that because, yeah, Twitch can be a little worried about some of these things we're talking about, historical thing and not. And it causes problems here. So, so when you see it in those terms, mass killings are not necessarily the bad thing. Difficult to maintain self-image of a hero, one's own servant when you are bumping off prisoners and sending men, women, and children. Yes. Well, if you think they're the problem, Australia, hello, Australia today, and you're putting people in camps. Hello, Australia today, right now, Australia camps, Australia camps. Why are you putting people in camps? Oh, without due process of law? Nobody's gone before a judge, and you're putting people into camps, Australia today? They seem to see themselves, and they're sending men and women to camp in Australia today, under the current Australian government today, as I speak now. So yeah, why is it so different in 1941 for people if we can do this? Never again. Well, but maybe now. But never again. Well, maybe we'll just do it now for a little while. Won't be so bad. They're really nice camps. But, yeah, so, okay. Without due process. And that is a key element to it. Now, we want to keep the HQs up relatively close to the action here. So, what I want to do I don't know if we can do this, but this is my goal, is to take this turn. Okay. Nope. I'm not going to make attacks that are not going to just bust through. So yeah, I know people are worried and scared about things, and I'm not saying things right now are not. Oh, yeah, okay. They can move. Okay, well. Nope, not going to be good enough, damn. Okay, I was really hoping to bust through that. And here we can move to here. Yeah, this is how you repair the railways in the manual sense. So we want to do that. Repair that. Sort of a misclick got me over here. Was it now? Some of these units will repair on their own, or are sort of auto functioning. I wish I was fixing this central railway up here. Okay, well. Okay, let's come down here. What do you want to do? That which takes it. One of your action points. You want to get that railway going. Okay. Not as successful as I would like. Due process under the law is a very, very important thing. But the law always gets it right, you know, the courts and whatnot get everything right. Not trying to say that. Okay, he's out of. See, when you see it red like that, he's out of command distance. Yeah, okay, not really worried about the security unit there. Where is your higher? Your higher command is way back here. Hopefully that was a good idea. And we go north under Lieb. He kind of who it was. We concentrate our forces here. I'm worried about supply, but hopefully things will go well enough. And it, no. Depot management, yes. And again, if you want to play this more detailed and take more time, you can definitely do so manually with things like manually managing the depots, manually managing the air war, which I am leaving both of those up to the AI. Hopefully they're making reasonably good decisions. None of those attacks would have been good. And we've got rain. Lovely, rain. So yeah, I can't imagine it being good to have one of your subordinate commanders in the Totenkopf division being somebody you tried to get dismissed from their job. So, and then you're still, you know, from dealing in France back in 1940, and now you're commanding them again in 1941. And Hoepner had a very low opinion of Totenkopf at that time, as being, you know, not terribly good soldiers, not just some sort of ideological thing. You can rationalize things, but the more you rationalize, the more the halo slips. You can ignore the Jewish situation, or at least the Wehrmacht, they could, but the Germans have this same concept of gentlemanly warfare we do. Now, a lot of the time is obviously bullshit, but those times when soldiers on different sides interact, we and the Germans have a tendency to believe in a gentleman's war with manners and respect, just professionals doing a job. Yeah. Yep, there's a lot of that going on. And so the Germans generally did behave different when fighting the Western Allies versus fighting the Soviets on many levels. And I will say some of it, I'm not saying the atrocities are justified, but that's not what I'm saying. But some of the, on the sort of combat reality situation, is justified because the Soviets were known, going back to the Russian Revolution and the Russian Civil War, for behaving very, very badly. Okay? So if you have a situation in which your enemy is known to be behaving badly, well, then when you're encountering them, you have to be prepared for them to continue that behavior. And so there is, a practical justification. Again, not for the atrocities, just for the way you're interacting with the enemy. I think yes. And I was good. Yes. Yes, absolutely past the gangster. He is eventually killed. I don't know how. Oh, here. Okay, so we lost 3 tanks, 8 aircraft, 1,800 men, leading up to now. And we are going to let the AI handle the execute the air directives. If you want a detailed game and you want to take the time, it is probably much better to handle the air war and consider how much air you want to be supporting your ground attacks versus just general, bombardments of enemy airfields and whatnot. So, all done, losses. So we had 2 aircraft losses, so that was very good in that sense. I don't see a good reason why not. Look where we can here. There might be, but I don't see it. Yes, we could see a counterattack, but a lot of these are still fairly weak units. I know I'd like to trap a bunch of them, but I see that big armor unit there, fairly big infantry or strong infantry unit there. Cognizant of that. sort of. What I want to do is don't stack you too heavily there. So let's move you up to there like that. You to there. Just do some concentration of force as well as they can get all the way up to there, but they can't move off it here. That's what I mean. Right bullet here and 86 to 20. Yes, we're going to do a deliberate attack and hopefully win this one. Population's evacuating. Good. Division routed. I did not want this to not succeed. Yes, we can't. If I'm going to, 2 divisions were routed. If I'm going to attack now at this stage, no. I don't want to hit them weakly. I want to hit them hard. Now this is the Pulitz ISS division. This division was made up of policemen with military training and experience for sure. To there. Get to there. Yeah. I don't know if it's important at this stage, but I do want to stay there. Okay, so we've gotten here. I'm not going to move them up to here because I don't want these guys too isolated to be hit by any sort of hammer here. We're going to have some hammer blows coming. Not the speed that I want them to have. But maybe the speed we get to have them. Getting these guys too far separated, so let's move like that. So that's still too separated, but we'll see about bringing him down. It's sort of neat to watch, particularly when you're actually executing attacks. Let's clear that and rid of that. I don't want to get involved in a battle here, but I do want to sort of keep up what I can of this territory here. Maybe cut off some units. There. Division. Security forces, they would be better to come out here and occupy. That. Wow. Leaving this to other forces. Now, one of the two corps under Hoepner's panzer group is Manstein's corps. You've all heard of him, I'm absolutely sure. Which I don't know if it's as much of a problem being out of command range if we're not really going to use them for attacks. Okay, so the Soviets have unfortunately successfully withdrawn a lot of their forces, but I hope, I do see this big stack. It has 7 strength in the attack, 13 in the defense, and here 6 in the attack and 10 in the defense. Again, these numbers for your side are your attack strength and your sort of action point movement, however you want to call it, elements here. But for them, it's first is attack, the second number is defense. So they might be able to come in and pick on one of these stacks here, but we're pretty strong, and that's sort of why I'm... Yeah, let's move this up here. We're sort of exhausting ourselves by moving this way. I want to try to keep the idea that they really can't come in and bottle me up here. Now these guys, we need to move in. I did a misclick last time when I was playing, got this unit way over to there. I'm looking, and I don't know if there's going to be a... Gotta come back and repair it. Yeah, this is me dealing with a misclick because we definitely want supplies to flow up along these rail routes. That is a rather important element. Okay, you need to come way up here. You can see here, now we could transfer this division to another HQ, but I'm not going to do it right at the moment. But you do sort of need to keep that involved. Now Hoepner is very confident in his... Oh, we've got more forces showing up here. Cool. Yeah, they're not yet assigned to any core. They're directly under the OKH here, HQ back here, but they're not assigned. That's why they're still in white. But we'll bring them up and maybe assign them to a division here soon. He's very confident in the opening stages of the war, in pushing hard. Remember, don't know what he did, if anything, really in Poland. I think he was involved there, but he very much leads a rather successful, mechanized campaign against the West. Britain, France, Belgium, those people. And he has a lot of the prejudice against Soviet forces, and I say that in the idea that thinks that they are a hollow force. So that is common within the Germans. So if he really wants to push hard, no, let's go under depots. And so he is still pushing. Well, eventually, they want to pull his 4th Panzer Group away from the Leningrad front, because Lieb is moving more and more into the idea of just sort of surrounding. Was an army commander in Poland. Very well could be Plastic Gangster. I don't know. You can look it up on Wikipedia. I'm sure it's there. I just don't remember. Well, I'm just very familiar with, him being involved with the invasions in the West. And so, with Lieb going, yeah, hey, we're just, going to sort of besiege Leningrad, because the Germans believe that the Soviets are going to just withdraw from there anyway, so why break your forces assaulting, solid positions when you could just wait. Hello, Ricky Ziegler. Weasler was the judge who screamed at everyone for the cameras. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, I know of the trials, the show trials, if you will. I don't know how much evidence was required. I really don't know Hoepner's involvement with the July plot. I know there is some involvement. I'm not trying to say he wasn't. I just don't know. The other lunatic who ran the horrible anti-Semitic newspaper. Yeah, they're all lunatics. But please, anyone, don't in any way think that I have any sympathy for the Nazi viewpoint. I'm just trying to, at times, explain their viewpoint so that you can understand them, so that I can try to understand their viewpoint, not that I'm in sympathy with them. I don't know the details of the show trials that went on. I do know that there was a lot of show in the show trial, shall we say. Very little law. You see, I really have to wonder how much, and we'll get to some of the Hoepner stuff. Very little trial, yeah. Okay, so we've lost more tanks in our attack. 50 tanks, which are expensive. Just 2 aircraft. The tanks are down to me using the tank forces to bust into the town. But I did not want to give the Soviets the sort of fortified position there. They've moved down to that. And we're going to see what we can do here now. Execute Erich directives. I keep forgetting this. And so, back to Hoepner in 1941. So they try to pull away the 4th Panzer Group from Lee's army heading or dealing with the Leningrad front, but Lee objects. Hoepner objects. Okay, well, we lost very little aircraft. Very good. Hopefully they're doing good work on bombing and reconnaissance. And they try one more sort of, not so much assault on Leningrad, as and I'd have to read into more details because it's been a long time since I really looked at it, but more of another, attempt to push around the flanks and whatnot with his forces, with, I think, a limited success. And then eventually Hoepner's force is turned over to Army Group Center to deal with the northern flank of the push towards Moscow. And Hoepner embraces this at this point fully and pushes really hard for Moscow, which he should. Do see some of the dangers here. Hopefully they don't. See your vulnerabilities. I'm not planning on trying to assault these units here. I'm planning on sort of coming up and putting pressure on them by being here, and hoping that some concentration of force here can push sort of this way, because we have this artificial frontier boundary here that if we can sort of trap and cut off the forces. That's right, really structure. And the guy I was thinking of was Roland Freezer. I think you totally confused the two. There's so many names. I get lost in them plastic games just so I don't feel bad. And I, as you know, dig into these things deeply at times. I'll do it first, but I'm going to do it again now. I believe Hoepner was intrinsic to the post, or intrinsic to the post assassination plans. I think he even had battle stuff. He very well may have been. I just, I haven't read about it recently. Hoepner's involvement in the July 20th plot. But so I'll get there. You guys are jumping ahead on the story. I'm going to tell a story here, guys. I love your enthusiasm, but okay. You go out to here, just see what we can sort of push up here. I just want to hit hard. I'm going to hit hard. So a bit of a push here. These pushes here were mainly to keep any of these divisions from really thinking they could come down and strike at me a bit more in depth. Maybe take out my HQ. Maybe I'm risking it. I know. I don't know that they can get through between the terrain and zones of control to get in there, but I want to push. I think I've successfully sort of rail cut these guys here, so we'll see how that works out. Okay. So I want to, like I say, I want to bring up. You can't stack more than 3, and I don't even know if I want to stack 3 here. Do that. Back there. Mostly just scary on the defense. The units are getting weaker and weaker as we're pushing them tirelessly up to the front. And please don't take my playing here for any sort of great genius of this is the best way to do it, because quite honestly I'm sort of winging this. As you can tell, I have some basic familiarity with War in the East too, but I am no like expert to know all of the details. Hey, Toyjet, Sir Toyjet, how you doing? I'm doing quite well. SMT, oh, thanks Plastic Gangster. I'll have a bit of Coke though, but yes, thank you so much. And that's the Plastic Gangster. Pixel, hi Pixel. Thank you for that. Talking to Plastic Gangster here. Okay, so reasonably secure there. Threatening to push out here. I'm a little, well, those offensively look pretty weak, so what would be the odds? Oh, no, straight to even. Okay, yeah, we're going to keep our sort of forces like that. Not good enough. No, not good enough to push right now. We're bringing up more and more forces. Use up here, that'll keep them actually functioning better. There. Invading Russia? Yes, we are. Photo scene of Hoepner as him looking cranky. Not just serious or stern, but cranky. Yeah, I know what you mean. I guess cranky face helps leading men into battle with being scary. There's a lot of persona in being an officer. That is for sure. Like you take the David Schwimmer character, I forget, you know, the real life person he was playing in Band of Brothers, and he just comes off entirely as a I want to repair this railway path here, as a person who is not going to have the confidence of the people he is leading. So whether his like I remember, it's been a long. I've watched the series through once when it came out fully, but early on in the training, I know this is sort of non sequitur. Well, yeah, it's a dickhead too, but a dickhead is. Well, I don't know if you're talking about Hoepner or the David Schwimmer character, but dickhead's fine. I mean, it may not be the best command presence, but it's sort of fine. It goes back to like when he was early on in the training scene, and when they're doing sort of that map reading exercise out in the field, and he's going, I think we need to go over looking at the map, as opposed to confidently going, we're going that way. You know, leading with the Band of Brothers character, yeah. You know, we're going off that way, and just sort of leading with confidence, even if it's like leading in the wrong direction. He's, you know, he's showing lack of confidence in his, you know, in his actions, and that is very, very badly when dealing with people. So we need to attach him to a better division once we get up to the front somewhere. So yeah, you dickhead, sure, I'm not trying to dispute that at all. Much more along the idea, I was in the Marines for 8 years and ran into plenty like him. I'm sure. A Marine Corps friend of mine said, I think there was like a total of 3 officers, and he was a sergeant for a number of years, that he respected in the Marine Corps or something like that. One of them had graduated from VMI, and the other 2 had been, although the Marines had gone through Annapolis or something, I forget. But yeah. And so it's, you gotta show a certain level of confidence in your actions, that you believe what you're doing is the right thing. Now, it's also best that it's the right thing. I'm not trying to dismiss the, you know, actuality of leading in the right directions, but to show a lack of confidence. So yeah, I don't know enough about. I've never read like a biography on Hoepner or something, where I have, you know, biographies or books written by like Monstein and Guderian. So I don't know the personality of Hoepner. He's just always sort of been a periphery character that I've, you know, heard about, not so much focused on. Either timid or too obsessed with their own place in history. Treacherous or stubborn, proud, blinkered, as they could all see the writing on the wall. They were massive contradictions. Yes, absolutely. Very possibly due to the dissimilar nature of their characters, they achieved very little. Yeah, well, there's a lot of reasons why the July 20th plot falls apart. A lot of them. Now, a big one is they didn't kill Hitler. I mean, that quite honestly is a big one. It would have, I think, failed miserably as well, but I think it would have thrown the National Socialist regime into much more chaos, and maybe to the point of army units fighting to protect commanders from SS goon squads picking them up, if you know what I mean. You know, sort of breaking out of a bit of a civil war going on had they killed Hitler. But you know, so to get back to Hoepner, because I'm getting to the July 20th plot. That's all on my storytelling. I know I'm not a great storyteller, but I like to try to do what I can to make these interesting. Okay, well, these security units, I don't know. I understand in the campaign you're more likely to run into partisans and whatnot, but I don't think we're just from sort of the historical perspective that worried about it now. So he's pushing on the northern flank of Moscow, trying to push around, and still trying to be offensively pushing into December. I don't know if there's really much more I can do here. Moving forward units that guys are all command range. These guys. So Okay, just again to talk at my wanting to push this here for a hammer blow into this direction. Sure, they might readily be able to withdraw much of this force, but still sort of securing down here would be a nice goal, and would allow me to, you do see like that big armor force there, to push up from the southern flank here, if you will, so that it'll be a choice between here, pushing, and here. We'll see how this goes. Probably going to fail miserably, but keep reading the depot. Yes, I wish that was automated once I set it up. And eventually, of course, the advance into Moscow is failing, and part of it is they just literally don't have the gasoline with like some of the divisions, you know, so they can't move, they can't fight. You can't operate mechanized force without gasoline. So partially it's just a pure logistics failure. Now whether or not, and I don't know, and I haven't read enough to know the opposing forces, and of course once you make the point of contact, the enemy commander may do something really stupid, and no matter how, you know, we've got all these brand new T-34-85s, and you get somebody like Otto Karius coming into their reserve depot and just blowing them all up while they're you know, unoccupied. So who cares that they had them? It just they become wreckage. So comparing, you know, force strengths is useful, nice, and we do it as an exercise all the time, but we don't know what would have happened had, you know, the attack actually come out. So I don't know whether competency on both sides, what levels it would have happened. So even if the Germans had the fuel to keep, and I presume also a difficulty in munitions, artillery shells, tank shells, machine gun bullets, whatever. Had they had that going, I don't know how you know, at the time in Moscow, how that would have. Well, they did push in deep. Wow. Okay. Learn from my mistakes, everybody. They really pushed in on me here. They created a pocket. Gamer getting his butt kicked. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh. Uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh. Uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh. The Scove Pocket. A new chapter in World War II history that never happened. So, you know, had they had the logistical elements to push with the forces then available outside of Moscow, whether they would have been able to surround and take Moscow or not, I don't know. I haven't, you know, even really sort of looked into it in any depth, you know, recently, as in the last 10 plus years, you know, really read anything about it. But what happens with Hoepner is he realizes the situation, asks permission to withdraw his forces back a ways. Okay, well, we've only lost 9 tanks to their actions, so not too bad there, but this is looking reasonably good. This is not. They pushed my headquarters that were all strung out back here. Ooh. Ooh. Oh, let's do the air phase. And so, he anticipates getting permission to withdraw his forces, meaning he starts doing so even without permission. He's Okay, losing very little aircraft, so the sorties are at least not being stupid in that sense. So he is, and basically my understanding is, the general's, yeah, so yeah, sort of like good idea. Let me check with the Fuhrer to see if we can withdraw. And so Hoepner presumes that he's going to get the yes answer. Well, when Hitler finds out that he's actually not just asking to withdraw, but actually withdrawing without permission, and we all know that Hitler really becomes more and more obsessed with this as time goes on, that he is enraged with the timidity of his generals. Like we were talking earlier, there's a lot of ideology running around dealing with the German-Soviet war. Maybe I should say the Nazi-Soviet war. Now, and please very much understand that I use terms like, I'm not using Russia, I'm using Soviet, I'm using Nazi. I'm trying to be very, very, very specific in these terms. Hitler sees this as a test of wills. And to a point, warfare, and I know you guys, many of you were just watching DOS Tactics, a mashup of medieval and classical warfare. Warfare often does come down to will to stand in that battlefield and do damage to the enemy and not give up on your side. Now we know, we can look at the times, I would say, supreme efforts of will that the Japanese presented. The Americans and the British and the Australians and all the other peoples out there, including forces that at times might not be terribly dedicated to their jobs. I'm thinking, say like the Indian divisions in the British Army. So it's not like, oh, we're fighting for our home. It's no, we're sort of professional soldiers out fighting, in somebody else's colonial imperial war kind of thing. Had a certain level of will to fight for sure, but their firepower, the Marines had lots of willpower in the Pacific. I'm not trying to diminish that at all, but it really comes down to Marine Corps firepower, and the American firepower just overwhelms it. So willpower alone can only get you so far in a modern war. It cannot. I don't know what to do about this. This is a mess. I'm just talking here for a moment, killing a bit of time. I'm banking everything on this little hope down here at this point. So that is a critical element, willpower. But Hitler becomes, when you don't have fuel to move your tanks, to do either offensive or even retreat options, what the hell are you worrying about willpower for? As a whether supreme commander or theater commander or even army commander, you might be worrying about willpower as a battalion commander, because a good friend of mine who was in the Marine Corps in Korea. Now he was not part of the the Chosin evacuation of the Marine Corps out of there, but when he gets to Korea and is being trained up there and fighting there, a lot of his superiors were, and talking about how the Marines, at least in one unit, where they brought their dead out with them, and they knew it was costing them more dead Marines to carry all of their frozen dead out of the pocket. And I forget which unit it was. They carry their dead out of that Korean fighting pocket. It's not do you have enough ammo or food? Well, we had to carry the dead people out, sir. In trucks or whatever. They carried all of their dead out. And so, yes, again, I'm not trying to dismiss willpower, especially if you're looking at keeping a battalion or a company, including a motorized one without any fuel, keeping them from just shattering, just giving up in a situation like this and going away because they have the will to just march out or hang on or whatever. But when you're talking about like a whether it's theater or supreme commander or like army or army group commander, what the hell are you worrying about the willpower of your officers if you cannot supply them with ammunition to shoot their damn guns? And that's sort of the problem with Hitler and this stuff. Okay. One of these divisions we're going to take that. Good. And then this one is going to come up to here. Get here. Get here. Do not move up and attack. What? Okay, Germans were getting the invasion prior to Barbarossa on Paulus ran it and showed they would need a few weeks pause once they got to Smolensk because at that point outran the logistical trail. Very interesting answer. And yes, playing a different game, different campaign. One person asked me, will we play as America? Which I've never played the campaign as that in the Grand Strategy World War II game. You can guess. And well, I asked, how would that be interesting? Because we know how America wins the war. I definitely read, I've read lots of books, definitely watched a lot of documentaries from the American perspective on World War II, absolutely. But I've never been as terribly fascinated by dealing with that because we know how America can win. But where my interest has always been, hey, Van Bishop, has been sort of like, well, how could Germany possibly have won either a particular campaign or the war? Or how could Italy, or how could Japan? You know, the sort of what ifs kind of thing fascinate me as an intellectual exercise after reading all of the good histories and coming up with stuff. So, and his sort of point was as well, the dealing with the logistics in the different theaters, and it's a truly global war from the American perspective, and how to handle, dealing with the various Pacific elements, and dealing with, North Africa, Europe, and what you might try to do as America playing a grand strategy game that way. Okay, yeah, I can see that as being a bit more interesting than the viewpoint that I was sort of at first giving it credit. Playing the Americans, but yeah, logistics, in a modern war, and again from an American perspective, that really starts in the American Civil War. I know you can look at some 1850 stuff in Europe and Crimea and whatever that sort of predate that, but really sort of modern war to me starts where industry is really the thing with the American Civil War. Let's see, I want to see what Plastic Gangster wrote. The truth is they were not a movement per se, they were a bunch of individuals. Oh, you're talking about the conspirators, yeah. No real goal other than to remove yeah, you're absolutely right. Socialist mayor, yeah, Gallagher or whatever, the mayor of, I forget where, he's one of the conspirators. Yeah, there were a disparate group of people that was definitely going on with the thing. Sorry, I read liberal and bishop in the same sentence, and my computer alarm went off. Uh-oh. Well, liberal can be multiple things. You just go down, try to occupy some of the forts there. I know we are sort of collapsing here, but my hubris, my overconfidence. something of a sensible viewpoint here. Okay, well, I hate saying it, but World War II in Europe was won on the Eastern Front. The 80% of the German casualties caused by Russian soldiers, same could be said for the Germans. I'd have to disagree, but there's a lot depth to that, Lanzer. There's Thank you, Plastic Gangster. Happy New Year to you and everyone here, of course. Have a good day, and next week I will be back Tuesday. I'm forgetting, is it Order of Battle or something? I don't know. I'm playing next Tuesday here, and of course, in mentioning that, I do have, if there are new people here, I know many of you are chatting or not, but if there are new, let me just drop links. Of course, I'm happy to be streaming here for Slithering TV, but I do have my own YouTube channel where I play games and talk about history like this a lot. And on the weekends, of course, I stream for myself on Twitch, so you might want to give me a follow there if you like this type of stuff. And normally I don't make these bigger blunders, but this, I really didn't think they would come through here. It was only forced around 20 to 30% of it. Okay, let me do a quick analogy here for you, Lancer. It's sort of like the idea of two big guys wrestling, and they're both training and straining with each other, wrestling around, and maybe one guy is getting more advantage of the other guy wrestling around, and a little woman comes up with a stiletto and stabs one of the guys in the back. Now that big guy who got stabbed in the back, if he was paying attention and could face the woman, might readily be able to, because we're presuming a competent combator, might get cut some because of the stiletto or the knife or the whatever, but could take that stiletto out of the hand of the enemy and take it down readily. But because that person is putting 80% or more of his effort into wrestling the other guy, the other big guy was taking 80% of the efforts of dealing with the enemy, so he's the most responsible for winning. Yeah, I can see that viewpoint. I really can. But I'm sort of going that, yeah, the Soviets were taking the German attention and causing massive amounts of German casualties. Absolutely. But I still hold up that if it was somehow a Nazi/Soviet conflict and Germany did not have to put forces on other parts of its borders. It was just sort of, greater Germany, if you will, and whatever it becomes of Poland in the middle. And it's just sort of them versus the Soviets. And there's no one bombing Germany. There's no need to do a massive U-boat campaign. You might want to do a few U-boats just to sort of mess with the Soviets, their supply. But nobody's supplying the Soviets with Lend-Lease. They're having to buy, cash and carry weaponry, like in World War I early on, and all the Western Allies having to buy weapons from the Americans, with pay for money, in World War I, not any sort of Lend-Lease situation. So yeah, Soviets could, buy stuff from America. America might be happy to sell to them. But hey, if, the Americans aren't going to help escort them to Soviet ports, and if the Soviets have got to get them there, and if the ships either don't make it out of Soviet ports to get to America to buy it, or if they get sunk on the way in, America goes, who cares? If it's just a German-Soviet matchup, I'm betting on Germany. I may be wrong, and on this kind of thing, but I really see Germany as being the victor between those two parties in the war. Hello, Miracle Gus, how you doing? Agree the Soviet bore the worst. Yeah, I agree that they bore the worst, at least of the major powers. I mean, some Poland and whatnot was pretty badly handled. But we shouldn't discount the tremendous amount of supplies material the U.S. Okay, yes, absolutely. Hello, first-time chatter. I can't read your name. It's the wrong sort of color dope or something. Once watched a historian say approximately of vehicles used in World War II were American-made, mostly trucks and jeeps. Well, on the Allied side, yes, I would say something like that and so, yeah, I'm not trying to downplay the Soviet effort. And I'm not downplaying the amount of casualties. Sorry, Russian vehicles. Oh, Russian vehicles. Yes. Oh, yes. So much of those were American made. The logistics vehicles, and a lot of British and American tanks were sent, and aircraft were sent to the Soviet Union. So I am not trying to downplay the efforts, the contributions of the Soviet Union to it, but I really, really see the Soviet as the pinning attack. They're the ones that are distracting the Germans enough that allows the Western Allies to come in and do the killing blows. And I would also sort of say, we're going to, at the moment, disclude any sort of nuclear weaponry. No nukes on the table. That's a game changer. That had the Soviets somehow collapsed to a degree that some sort of peace was made, maybe just sort of along the lines of what happens, the Brest-Litovsk Treaty of World War I, or something like that happens. Not necessarily, greater conquest of the Soviet Union, but just some sort of maybe uneasy peace, but a peace in which most of the German forces could be withdrawn from active service. I don't know if it would be possible for America to defeat Germany, because I don't know. Yeah, they could do a Normandy, but they can't do 3 Normandies at once. And without the distraction of the Soviets, the Germans can move in enough panzer divisions or whatnot, even though the Americans are cranking out so many Shermans, so many this, so many that I don't know that they could successfully defeat Germany, again, without nuclear weapons. So, I mean, see, it's a balance thing. I'm not trying to say, oh, it was all America, or oh, it was all Britain, or oh, it was... And so this is why I don't want to say it's all the Soviets. The Soviets are definitely a major player there. And I'm not just, in debates people have, China is not a major power in World War II. But a lot of people, and not just Chinese, are going, oh, but they were major conflict, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, but they're a minor power. They take huge amounts of casualties. They don't necessarily cost Japan huge amounts of casualties, soldiers. They cause considerable, but not major. It's more absorbing the troops and occupying forces and that kind of thing. And China is nowhere near the idea of pushing the Japanese out of any significantly held Chinese territory, until like the very end at best, if even then. So China is not a major power in World War II. It's a major theater. It has a lot of death and violence and whatnot going on, but it is not a major power. So the Soviets are a major power and a major theater and a huge cost at trying to make the war happen. And it's really a problem for Germany. Let's see, we're going to see about, let's retreat you back to here at least, you back to here, you back to here. Let's get you back and out of the way. I know we're going out of command range. So I'm not trying to discount, I think you can tell, what I think is the Soviet commitment. And this totally disrupts my plans of trying to cut off and push through here. Just push here. Blood, yes. Someone have to pay price in blood to fight. The invaders, the main forces of the West, could never have done that. They wouldn't have been prepared for losses. I don't know. You look at some of the losses in the Pacific. The U.S. paid them pretty heavily. Imagine the Atlantic Wall with 1 million Germans. Absolutely, yeah. The Russian drove the German surrender to the Allies faster. Hello, Tinky. How you doing? So yeah, no, the Russians played a critical role, and I don't want to in any way downplay it. But like I say, in a Nazi-Soviet matchup, I'm betting on the Nazis winning. If they're not at war with Britain, if they're not at war with France, if they don't feel they need to garrison their western frontiers because for whatever reason they don't feel they need to, I truly believe the Germans would win. Like I say, I very well could be wrong. I'm not trying to argue that I know I'm right. I think that's if I'm going to put my money down on one side or the other, that's where I'm going to go. I think, yes, like the Soviet ability, and we were talking earlier about the will to fight, but what does it matter if you don't have if you don't have ammunition? And we're again talking greater scale, not at like hand-to-hand fighting or some desperate action. We're talking will to fight on a large scale. If you don't have ammunition and you don't have fuel, what does it matter? If a tank can't move and you can't shoot the artillery piece, it doesn't matter how good your artillery pieces are. Or, well, okay, yeah, we've got 5 rounds per artillery pieces, and these are the most super awesome artillery pieces ever made. Yeah, but we only got 5 rounds. And then we're done. And so, and you could say that about the Soviets if they didn't have Western trucks to move their supplies around, Western jeeps to move their supplies around. Yes, they were making, I'm blanking on, they were making the Soviet truck, I forget what it was, they had a huge truck factory, but the U.S. was supplying, I know they were supplying other theaters. I don't know if they were supplying the Soviets with railway locomotives. I know they were supplying railway locomotives, and they could easily be set to different gauges out track. That isn't a big question. To other theaters of operations and other rolling stock, other freight cars, not just locomotives. through the war. And I'm talking like in Africa and Asia and places like Australia, sending them locomotives to keep their industry going. I don't know if that was going on in any real numbers to the Soviet Union, but without those logistic aids, without the amount of fighter and other aircraft gifted to the Soviets, without all of that going on, yes, it's Soviet pilots in there, yes, it's Soviet tankers in the tanks, absolutely, yes, it's Soviet drivers in those trucks, absolutely, I'm not trying to diminish that, but without all of that, I don't think the Soviet Union could be nearly as offensive as it was. It couldn't be doing things like this. Like I just got my butt kicked by this. Yes, they did supply. Okay, rolling stock. Okay, Lancer. Yeah, I wasn't sure. I remember reading about or was it a documentary? I forget which. Reading about American locomotive production and not just for American domestic use, but shipping them over to allies to keep, even Britain, rolling with more rolling stock in Britain, keeping their industry going. So without all of that going on, and this is like World War I before it, like the American Civil War, this is a war of production. Like in the American Civil War, the Confederates had very, very poor production of weaponry. They're trying to produce pistols for their cavalry and artillery and other and these aren't just fancy officers carrying some stuff. You get a lot of, so the Southerns are, Mosby particularly is an advocate of pistol-only cavalry, meaning he doesn't allow any of his horsemen or officers to carry swords. He just wants to use pistols. So they're constantly in need of pistols. Well, the one major manufacturer of pistols in the South wants to use brass as part of the pistol manufacturing, the frame and whatnot. Just because steel is harder to work with, or iron, iron is around, but they need all of the brass or copper that they can get their damn hands on just to make the cap, or to put on the back of the cap-lock muskets and the pistols themselves. And the South has a shortage of copper going on during this time. So it's not just the manufacturing, it's the mining and getting the basic resources. So we're looking at a war of production even in the American Civil War. So production has to be a major element. So I really like my analogy of two big strong guys wrestling, and the Soviet guy, he's carrying his own, and he may be even starting to pin down that German guy, but it's not conclusive yet until even just like a little woman or somebody else just comes and stabs the one opponent in the back. And I don't mean that sort of in a negative sense. I mean that in sort of a coup de grace, take them out, put them down sense. And without that, I don't see the Soviets winning at all. And yeah, I do know that there is a lot, or has been a lot of downplaying there. So now we've sort of created a little pocket for our people that were pocketing us. Ha! Okay, now if we do a deliberate attack, okay, 2-1. I'm pissed, and I'm going to take it out on these guys. I'd probably lose too much equipment that isn't worth hitting and routing that, but okay, they got hit and routed. No, I'm not pissed at you guys, of course. I'm just here. So yeah. Great Soviet General. Yeah, Zhukov was pretty good. Okay, so Hoepner. Let's finish up sort of the story of Hoepner. He anticipates getting permission to withdraw. Hitler's already freaking out about the lack of the will to fight in his generals. Hitler never really trusts the army. Hitler is influenced by a lot of elements in his life, including Ernst Röhm, I do believe. Obviously, he has Röhm eventually killed. Röhm is an anti-Prussian, especially if you will, an anti-Prussian officer kind of guy, from his experience in the army. And not just Röhm, but others color Hitler ideas of the officer corps in a very negative light. And, you know, even before the war is starting. And so with that, with the, oh my God, my general's retreating without permission, whether Hitler might have been able to be convinced to give permission to withdraw or not, I don't know. I don't know that it's a foregone conclusion. At that point, he would have said no. But I think it's clearly that at that point, it infuriated him that a general was just giving up and not pushing on anymore. And so he dismisses Hitler from the army, demands that he have his pension removed, and he can't wear his uniform in retirement, or blah, 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 blah. So I suspect, I won't say I'm sure, but I suspect his earlier conflict with the Alter Kameraden, the old comrade of Ike, not that Hitler and Ike were any particular buddies or anything, but is influencing Hitler, and, you know, with, oh wow, you didn't just collapse. You're supposed to just collapse. Force is held? Or, wow. 4-1. Oh, better than 4-1. And so this is a bit of a, you know, both of these guys in here? Yeah. Good. Oh, wow, okay. Make sure both of these are... Nope, can't do another door. Okay, well these guys are sort of cut off down here. I'll withdraw a little bit. The size of Russia compared to anything in the West makes battles so different. Look like Curse to LLMA. Absolutely, dogs. How you doing? The scale of the fighting is so big. It really is. Hoepner eventually sues because earlier on the traditional German courts still have a fair amount of power, and wins his lawsuit to get his pension restored. So I am sure this is embittering Hoepner to be a lot less friendly to the Nazi regime, and a much greater willingness to go into something like the July 20th plot. I'm sure that is an element there. And make sure our railways are connected as possible. I think we'll be with that up there, so let's go up there for next turn. These other ones are on sort of autopilot, basically, connecting the railways as they run around, doing that. Oh, absolutely, dogs. Do please join the chat. And since you are first time here, I am very happy to be streaming for Slithering TV here. Many great streamers streaming many great games. But I do also, because we're getting towards the end here, again, shout out my Twitch channel, which I stream for myself on the weekends. Playing historical games while talking about history. That's sort of my thing. I like having debates with the viewers. I really appreciate that, because so many of them are so smart and have such good opinions. Not that they got to agree with mine, but well supported. You can follow that there. And also have my own YouTube channel, in which you can find, either later replays of the live stuff or stuff I'm making not live. So you might want to. Well, thank you, and thanks, Lanzer. So yeah, check out my YouTube channel. Of course, I know Lanzer already has. So many of the other guys here. So thank you so much. I will be back. I forget. I'm playing something Tuesday for Slitherine. I forget what's on the schedule. It could be Field of Glory. It could be Order of Battle. I think later in the month, but it's later in the month is Decisive Campaigns Back to the Ardennes Offensive. But that'll be coming up, so I'll be doing that. And of course, like I say, Command Modern Operations by Kushan, I'm sure will be tomorrow if he can make it, and a whole bunch of other stuff starting Tuesday will be scheduled and out. So come back then and check out everything. So thank you so much. I love hanging out and talking history with you guys. I love the interaction, so please keep it up. I do watch some of the other streamers here. Hexabu is very funny. Richard of York is very enthusiastic. Das Tactic is very good at explaining his tactics and whatnot, and I'm thrilling. But I really love the, shall we say, greater, especially when I get onto history, greater interaction that I seem to see here and debating history stuff. And I really love that, and I'm glad you guys show up. So I just want to thank you all and wish you a Happy New Year, and I will be back many times for playing with all of you guys. So see you then. Thanks, everyone. Have a good